Welcome to Iron Mantis Chronicles, a Kung Fu podcast for warriors, thinkers, and seekers. Here, we dive into the art of mastery, the philosophy of movement, and the stories that shape us. Whether you're a martial artist or just curious about the Kung Fu world, you've found your place.
This past weekend, I was able to set up an Iron Mantis Kung Fu trip to California. We were there a week. It was in Los Angeles and San Diego. We also got to jump over to Ramona, where we got to train with my longtime friend, my Kung Fu brother, Sifu Tony Puyot. We had a lot of great conversations, and I'm hoping you guys are going to enjoy this podcast.
Okay, so I'm Tony Puyot, San Diego, California, and my martial arts journey started when I was 13 years old. My motivation for that was to deal with the gang problem we had, and I just had to be able to defend myself. And so I started at the local YMCA doing they had a Kempo karate. I didn't know the difference really, but that's what I started with. That's what they had, so that's what I did. And then they had a Kung Fu class, so I did that. And searching for different instruction and more instruction, I kept finding different schools, and ultimately found the Praying Mantis school of my teacher, Stephen Lorette, and started training in Praying Mantis. Part of the motivation was also that as I got older, I went into security work, and I was getting into, altercations at work, and I needed that skill set. So, I kept searching for more knowledge. The point about Praying Mantis is I've studied probably 25 different arts, and I've studied with some really good teachers and some really good other martial arts, mainly Chinese arts, but other arts from other countries. But the Praying Mantis, to me, when I used it, in my profession, had more of what I needed. It had the locking, it had the throwing, it had the striking, it had the principles, it had long range, short range, medium range. And I found it to be really practical and applicable to what I was doing, to the real world. Initially, some of the techniques didn't work as I was taught, and that's one of the frustrations that, you're told this is the way it's supposed to work, or this is what you're doing. And then you do it in the real world, and it's like, that doesn't work that way. I don't think many people have the opportunity to practice for real as much as I did. And so it gave me a special insight into how things really work. And it also got to the point where my Sifu, we would talk on the phone, and he would ask, how did that work? Or did it work the way I showed you? Because honestly, I had way more actual experience using it than he did. And so he was really interested in, hey, how does that work? Or why didn't it work? Or what was the problems with it? And so, we spent the next 20, 30 years going down this path of getting better, deeper understanding from a practical perspective. After I did the security work, then I went into police work. And of course, I'm still fighting. So I basically have been fighting my whole life and using martial arts in a real application. And I would listen to people, and they would tell me, "Oh no, this is how it is," and I would just shake my head, thinking, "Well, have you used it this way?" And well, no, this is what my teacher taught me. And I'm like, well, I'm in the trenches. I'm the one actually using it. And it doesn't work for this reason or that reason, or you have to change it like this. And so it was, it wasn't a choice that I made, but it worked out for me as a teacher to really understand how things function. So I knew that this was an ancient art that someone created that was much smarter than me and more talented. So there's only two things that could happen. Either I didn't do it correctly, or I wasn't taught properly, because I never considered the art to be flawed. I considered me to be flawed, or maybe the teachers before me to be flawed. But the art, I thought, no, there's no way this is the problem. So for example, I would learn a form. Say, in our system, Bang Bu was a very important form. And I learned that form at least 10 times. Because if it was the teaching of it, or my application of it, or my inability to understand it, well, I learned it 10 times from 10 different sources to see maybe something got lost there. Maybe this piece got taught wrong, or someone interpreted it wrong. And so I got the most reference material to find out what was the problem with it. As to why I didn't just abandon it, because there was too much good. When there's more good than bad, and you can't find something else that fits, I've got the right tool, but there's a few problems with it. Let me fix those problems versus completely changing, and starting all over and finding something that doesn't fit at all. So as far as my teachers and their influence on me, it's interesting because some teachers my teacher, Stephen Lorette, he taught me a lot of arts, Tai Chi, monkey, X style, Mantis, some Tai Chi. But he was an eternal student. And I always say that Sifu Lorette taught me to learn properly, to be a student, to analyze. I was already analytical, but he showed me that one form he taught me 3 different versions. But anything that was different from one to the other, he always explained what his teacher, he wasn't saying which one was right. He just said, well, this teacher does it this way because he believes this. And so it gave me the freedom to say, hey, there's not only one way to do things. So you have to find out which one makes sense for you. Which one is the real one that makes sense and is functional for you, versus a lot of people these days say, oh, no, you're doing that wrong. Well, my line is always show me. And if you can show me a better way to do it, then I'll do it that way. My 8-step Mantis teacher's son, he taught me truly what it took to train and to develop skills. He did high repetitions. He did very specific training. It was limited in technique and high on basically what we call muscle memory and full contact. Everything was full contact. And so it showed me that when you train a different way, you get a different result, and you get your body and your mind gets conditioned differently. And so he really helped me dial in certain aspects of my skill set to make it more usable and less clutter with excessive amount of forms or technique, and really focus on the drills that are needed and the skill sets that you need to develop for real combat. And so I guess the only other one that was really influential was a teacher named Vince Black, and he was Shingi Tai Chi Bagua and also Kaja Kempo, and he was a very practical man, probably the best fighter I've ever encountered, and he was just direct, and he knew how to take the clutter, kind of like my other Sifu, and say, hey, look, this is how this functions. Let's forget the fantasy and let's do it and try it and see what works. And then he would, but what I liked about him is he always related everything back to the forms and showed me everything he did was in the form. And it showed me the value of excessive forms just for learning forms was not great, but to use the tools that are in that form and really learn to apply them and bring it all together, that was really great, and how he did that and allowed me to see how the forms really translate in combat. The biggest problem I see with teachers is they stop learning. They get to a point and say, I am a black belt. I am a, quote, Sifu, and now I know all this stuff. As people that really know me for a long time know, I change my stuff, and I go, I'm okay with saying, hey, I've been teaching this for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. Hey, by the way, I was wrong. I've learned more now, and now I'm okay with changing and saying, nah, I made a mistake. I was wrong, because I continue to learn. I'm a lifetime learner, and you have to evolve. And so I think the responsibility for the teacher is to continue learning and finding higher knowledge. So I kind of equate it this way. If you're teaching elementary school, then you can just learn that body of knowledge, and that's good. If you're only going to teach children and they're only going to get to a certain level, then you have to accept that you are a teacher of children or you're a teacher of hobbyists. But if you want to be a true teacher of martial arts, then you have to be that collegiate level professor. And those collegiate level professors never stop learning. They just keep finding out new knowledge and go, oh, I learned something about this technique or this anatomy or this, the physics of how this works that I didn't know before. And then we continue to elevate the level of our students, including ourselves, but the level of our students and the level of knowledge from a very crude, what we see most places, we see a martial art being taught as a hobby. They do forms, and then when they spar, they do kickboxing. And there's no connection to it, the real martial art at all. So these are, I believe Chinese arts are the most advanced and the most profound arts in the entire world. They've had the longest to develop. But with that complexity and that sophistication, it's much harder to learn. And so you could learn a basic karate style, maybe, say maybe you get to a decent level in 5 years. Chinese martial arts is probably going to take you 20 years. And a lot of people don't want to devote that time of saying, hey, I'm not there yet. But at the end, you have something a lot more profound. And so they're not the same thing. And that is really what I think is that responsibility for a teacher of Chinese martial arts, to continue their development and then pass on this knowledge to future generations. So my main focus for the last at least 10, 15 years has been to teach, not for me to develop, but for me to teach and find the best way to transfer skill sets. What is the formula? And I often talk about this. You can have 10 ingredients and I give them to a master chef and they create a gourmet meal, or you can put them in my kitchen and I'll make something that you can barely eat. It's the recipe. It's how things are taught, not just what is taught, but how it's taught, that you get the results from the student, that they can actually use it and apply it and understand it. And so my focus is really to organize and get my curriculum of what I believe Mantis to be and how it should be trained. And then now hopefully to try to pass it on and to those that really want it. And that is my dilemma right now, is finding the people that really want this and are willing to do the work. And so I would say that, the primary focus, development of my art, my teaching method, and to pass it on. And that core curriculum was basically fundamental footwork, blocking, which is mainly three-way blocking, which is a zone defense, and striking, fundamental fist strikes. And what I did with that, when I developed that, it was a breakthrough moment, because it cut to the core of what is needed in striking to hit and not be hit. And I'm sure with your own experience, you saw that, oh, wow, this is pretty powerful. How can I block these without seeing these punches? I just know what to do. And what it is when I was talking earlier about understanding the mechanics of how things work, if we take three-way blocking, which is just a high block, middle block, and a low block with alternating the hands, you realize that if you play basketball or soccer, that it's a zone defense. The hands don't follow. They cover an area. So there's, you have your 9 boxes, 3 high, left, right, middle, and the middle ones and the low ones. And the hands have their own area of responsibility, and they don't cross over, so you don't get tied up. Well, that accompanied with the biological factors of focus theory and the non-thinking mind responding much faster than the thinking mind, so triggering peripheral vision with three-way blocking a zone defense, it makes it very easy to block. And so when you understand the theory and the biology of something and the mechanics of something, you can replicate it, you can understand it, you can teach it, and you know why it works, how it works, and how do I train it. And so teaching is not just replicating drills, but understanding why it works and what are the drills that are productive and not productive. An example of this is if I teach someone in a pattern, that blocking sequence, they learn it. But if you keep doing it in a pattern with a partner, it becomes counterproductive, because now they're set in a pattern. So you go randomly. After you learn it, you go randomly. To go backwards and do it in a pattern hurts you. And so you have to know, just like when you learn your ABCs, you recite your ABCs. But after you learn them, you never recite your ABCs again, right? So you go on to the next skill, which is 3-letter words. And then you go into bigger words and sentence structure and paragraph. And so you don't stay at the same place. You develop as you go along and develop these things. The striking is the same thing. The angles and the trajectories. Those are two different things. You understand power and mechanics of power, but then you also look at speed, and sometimes speed contradicts power. And so you have to know how the striking works and what you're giving up and what you're gaining. Then you learn basic footwork, how to move forward, how to move back, how to make micro adjustments. And these are the nuts and bolts of all fighting. Doesn't matter what it is. All fighting has these aspects. But by introducing so much other stuff, it gets cluttered and you never master this. So when you say Mantis boxing, it is the core, fundamental, most important aspects of basic striking combat done to a level that you learn it, that you ingrain it, and then all of a sudden you're better than other people that don't do this, and they can't figure out that you're not doing anything special, but you are. You have mastery of those fundamental core principles. So,
how do you feel about traditional martial arts and sports-based martial arts training? And is there any styles that you're more interested in than others, and why?
So this is a question that comes up, and I think a mistake that people make in their schools. I like sport. I like what we call tradition or traditional. The problem with this that I see is people blend the two, and they're not completely different, but you can develop bad habits from both. So you have to use the right tool for the right job. A common example is in a lot of combat sports that involve striking, you tuck your chin. You're protecting your jaw, and that's the most common way to get a knockout. Great. The problem is in traditional or street-based martial arts, tucking your chin makes you hyper-focus on one opponent and gives you tunnel vision to one opponent. And so you can't see a round movement. You can't use your peripheral because you're hyper-focused. So you don't see the guy's friend in the dark alley that's going to hit you with a lead pipe from behind, or that someone else is coming from your side because of your posture and the way you hold your hands and the way you're doing so. So it doesn't lend well. A lot of times people that do sport want to set up with like a jab or something else. Well, a lot of times in the street fights, they happen real quick, so someone doesn't care that they get hit with the jab. They'll just suck up the jab, but they want to swing and try to knock you out. The other thing that happens is a lot of times in fights, I saw this in my younger years, where someone is going to take a body punch and they don't care, but the problem was that they had a little knife in their hand, and it wasn't a punch, it was a stab. Well, you can't trade punches. And a lot of times in sport, you do choose to trade punches. So neither one is good or bad. It's what you want to do. When I was doing kickboxing and a little Muay Thai, I loved it. I loved banging. I loved the contact. I liked getting hit. I liked hitting. I loved it. But for my street and what I was doing at the time, I knew that that was sport, or what I call play. And then this was my other stuff that I always had to assume someone had a knife or something, or maybe a gun or something. And I couldn't take my training that way. So, as far as what I like, I love Muay Thai. I just love the striking and the physicality of it. And I think it's very fun, but boy, there's certain satisfaction when you on the street, use like a lock or a throw or a combination that came straight out of your traditional form, and everything works the way it needs to, or you deal with a couple people trying to hurt you, and everything is functioning the way it's supposed to. And you know that if it was sport oriented, it wouldn't have worked that way because it wasn't designed that way. So neither is good nor bad. It's just what you want to do, but just use the right techniques and the right training method for what you want to do.
I can't agree more, because from teaching the way we in Iron Mantis, we have it set up where people can. Well, we actually train MMA fighters and whatnot, and BJJ competitors, but with the end result being the hope of creating a Mantis practitioner. And Miguel, as you've seen along the way to black belt, my mission was to create a Mantis practitioner, but I ended up creating a BJJ student. That was never my intention. Or I've created someone who's mainly interested in MMA. That was never my intention. You've seen this. It's just, it is what it is. And I think it's kind of comes with the territory with, because when we did combine three styles, people have a tendency, even if they don't know their three styles, they have a tendency to be pulled towards a certain energy that those have. And for me, I've always been able to separate things, but other people, they're unable to separate things. So it is something that I couldn't agree with those statements even more, because I've experienced it. Because there's pros and cons with, putting Iron Mantis together, and then because I've always been clear on the end result is, but it doesn't, like I say, you can have your intention to be one thing, but the outcome can be another. Okay, let me see. What does mind, body, spirit mean to you?
Mind, body, spirit. So this is an important one from a overall perspective. When you're doing martial arts, when I was young, I was thin and athletic, not very strong, but ultra coordinated. My body was good enough. My mind, I had the motivation and I had a rational perspective of saying, I don't want to get beat up and chased by the gangs anymore, so I'm going to learn something to change it. My emotions were not correct, though. My spirit wasn't there. I was scared all the time. I was nervous. I was apprehensive. And so this trinity of mind, body, and spirit, one of them is going to trip you up, and they all have to be in unison and all need to be up to par to function. An example of that is I get in an altercation and I know the techniques, I'm able to do them, I know what has to happen, but my spirit is so frazzled that I feel like I can't even stand up because I was so scared. And I had to develop this warrior spirit, and I had to learn how to control my emotions. And I see this a lot. The spirit is usually the one that is the most lacking. And so what I noticed was in martial arts schools, the tough kids stay. The ones that really need the martial arts quit because they don't have the spirit for it, and they're not willing to endure the training, or they don't know how. And that really frustrated me. It made me, it saddened me that the ones that needed most were the ones that didn't last. And so when I started teaching, I started developing a process called stress inoculation. And inoculation is a small dose of whatever it is that is not doing you harm, so that your body develops this immunity. And so we sparred, but really slow, but always made contact. And as you progress, the contact increases. And what happens is you just get used to it, and you're inoculate, you're immune to it. It doesn't faze you. By the time someone becomes an instructor, they can take full power blows. It might even hurt them, but there is no emotional attachment to the physicality. The emotion has nothing to do with what happens to them physically. They're totally devoid of that. They have the warrior spirit of saying, I'm fighting. Oh, that hurt. I still got to fight. They have to be physically strong. And now that I'm older, I see where I've made some mistakes, and you have to rehab your body and do all the things that your teacher tells you about warming up and stretching and taking care of your injuries and doing those things. You have to be in the right place because you're given, your mind has to be in the right place. You're given a weapon. And if your mind is not in the right place, you can really hurt someone. That can also affect you the rest of your life, with the consequences. And so they all play a part. Each one of them can bring you down, but each one can bring you up. And so, so we have to, practice our martial virtues. We have to train our bodies and take care of our bodies. And we have to develop our warrior spirit so that we can go through this journey when we have to use these things, if we ever have to use them, so that we're in the right place, in the right mind, and we're not traumatized for something we did or didn't do, but we are a warrior with the warrior mindset, the warrior mentality, the warrior body, and make it do what it was intended to do, and that's our self-preservation, our personal development. I guess in closing, my dream is that we develop martial artists like the old school martial artists, that when you say black belt, that actually means something, that they've actually attained a really high level of skill and proficiency. And I don't see that the case right now. I would hope that, is it relevant? Yes, martial arts is relevant, but martial arts is dying. And I wouldn't even say dying. I'd say it pretty much is dead, with a few people just trying to revive arts here and there. We seem to think that just because some knowledge is old, it's outdated, but it's not outdated. There's nothing in MMA that hasn't already been done or taught somewhere before. It maybe hasn't been combined the same way. That's what's different. But all of this has pretty much been done. The stuff that hasn't been done, some of the grappling holds and submissions, they're new and they're creative, but they're for sport. Most people will tell you that a lot of those submissions wouldn't work if you added striking into their fighting. And so I think they're great for sport, but I think that what's used in the real world is there, and we just have to train people to be able to use it, and to use it to a high level, and to have standards that we had maybe in the 70s when I started. The standards were definitely there, and I think in this fast-paced world of instant gratification, we've kind of lost that. I mean, I want to share what I have. I'm in my 60s, and I have limited time and ability to demonstrate, and I just want to share as much as possible to do my part in furthering this elevation in skill, in teaching, in knowledge, and hopefully more teachers like Sifu Hughes and some others are doing the same to really bring up the level of martial arts in general. So, and I thank you for your time and appreciate doing this podcast.
Thank you for listening. Until the next time, stay strong, train hard, and finish healthy.